Section 14. Condition of the prisons. In order to fully understand the terms of imprisonment in the reign of the Merry Monarch, and why subjects were so eager to protect their liberty, we may be pardoned for giving a short description of the condition of the prisons at that time. We can present it in no better light than to quote the words of Mr. Amos, with respect to rigor of imprisonment in the pre-Howard reign of Charles II. The punishment was aggravated by the state of the jails to an extent which can scarcely now be conceived. The circumstances of Colonel Hutchinson's imprisonment are particularly related by his widow in one of the most interesting of English memoirs. During the last 11 months of her husband's life, Mrs. Hutchinson remained at Deal, the nearest habitable place to the castle. She describes Sandoway Castle as washed by the sea, of which the unwholesome damp moulded every article, and encrusted the dungeons with saltpetre, a peck of which might have been swept from the walls every day. Fox the Quaker has given most revolting descriptions of the state of the prisons in which he was incarcerated, that of Doomsdale, as Sir J. Mackintosh observes, surpassing all imagination. Of the jail at Scarborough, Fox writes, there was no chimney nor fire hearth in winter, the prison lying to the seaside, the wind drove in the rain, and the water came over my bed and flooded the room, so that I skimmed it up with a platter, when my clothes were wet. There was no fire to dry them. My fingers swelled, and one grew as big as two. Elwood the Quaker complained that in Newgate he saw the heads of men executed for treason tossed about in sport by the hangman and the more hardened malefactors. 1. These things make an honest American's blood boil. Could it have had less effect on the liberty-loving Englishman? The more so, when it is reflected that the end of those cruel imprisonments might be a revival of those horrible scenes described in the graphic words of Dickens, and which Cromwell had abandoned. The hearts of the sufferers were torn out of their living bodies, their bowels were burned before their faces, the executioner cut jokes to the next victim, as he rubbed his filthy hands together that were reeking with the blood of the last, and the heads of the dead were drawn on sledges with the living to the place of suffering. Let us now call the writ of habeas corpus a general jail deliverer, if we will, but remember, that in the merry days, when this merry gentleman sat upon his merry throne, in merry England, it meant something to the unfortunate subject who needed its use.